Listen up, maybe you've encountered this as well. Just when there's some idle time, you grab your phone. Just out of curiosity, maybe there's something important. Just before you go to the bathroom, you check pockets, whether you have your phone with you. Or just when there's this important recording now for me, what do? I'll check at first my emails in case there's something that could grab my attention, something that could be exciting or important or something I couldn't miss. And so these little things are very, very quickly turning into 2-hour sessions on Instagram, on emails, on a small rabbit hole that turns out to be very, very deep. And so that is one of the reasons why I want to talk about this, because I'm myself so affected by this topic and this issue of not being able to actually control how much time I want to spend on those devices. And so that specifically in this series, I want to talk about how to recognize, understand, and change your habits around the phone or screen use. And why am I talking about this? And why should you listen to this? I'm a psychologist, so by nature, I look into how I tick, how other people around me tick, what makes them do things, what are the things that get them activated to move in a certain way. And so this is quite a drastic shift over the last 10 years that happened, that our behavior turned so much to the screen. And for me, it had a tremendous influence. So I researched myself on how I could improve this. And at the same time, I also had quite some resources in psychology and how the mind works and how we are drawn to these devices. And also, obviously, the research pointed me to why those social media platforms are designed to keep us hooked. And so all of that we'll discuss in this series. 5 parts and 5 important steps to change your phone habits. And today we'll start with one of the most important ones, which is around awareness, understanding what is happening. So to illustrate that briefly, imagine you want to go somewhere. You use Google Maps. You point it at where you want to head. Let's say Berlin, New York, Amsterdam, whatever city you choose. And you say, go. And the first thing that's going to do is it's going to ask you, but where are you at? What's your location? And so that GPS signal that you will be asked in your phone app, in Google Maps, that we will do now. So we figure out what's the location, what's the current status quo, in order to make a change, in order to create the route to your location that you want to go to. And so today we'll start with a framework that I created and call figuring out the baseline. So for that reason, we can use BASE, B-A-S-E, as the little framework, the memory, the acronym to remember those steps. And so very briefly, it starts with the boot up or the pickup of the phone, the boot up of computer. The second is the A for application. So where do you spend the most time? S is for screen time. And E is for the emotions. So the most important part is actually the end, the emotions, but we'll get to that in a bit more depth. So just so you know, BAS is the framework we're working with. So I've been on this journey for a while, figuring out why am I so drawn to the screens? Why can't I change it? It started already years ago, I think 2015, that I noticed I felt very drawn to it. But not only until 2022, I wanted to make a drastic shift and really get control over this, because this was taking away my life. I was in Peru in the most beautiful scenery all around me. There were mountains, we were a little garden, and we had the most amazing hiking trails, and all of that surrounding awesome environment that we had could not get me away from using the screens 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours a day. And so one of the decisions, or one of the situations actually, that led me to make a change was when one evening I couldn't really fall asleep. And so naturally I grabbed my phone just to get rid of the thoughts. And I noticed myself watching YouTube videos, one of my hobbies back then, still is to some extent. And one thing that I searched for was how to stop using social media, or how to reduce the screen time. And so that was just such a hilarious thing, because I wanted to stop using it while using it. And so I ended up spending 5 hours through the night until I think 2 or 3 a.m. watching people using dumb phones and trying to change their habits around this. And it was just so hilarious. At some point, I luckily became aware of how funny this is, that I'm researching how to stop being on the platform while researching on the platform that I want to get rid of. And so that sort of light bulb moment just created enough energy for me to finally take up the momentum and make a change. And so from then on, I immediately started creating resources and ways for other people to change, and obviously for myself. And so that is now leading into this 5-part series and an online course that I created on Insight Timer that you can check out as well. Links are in the description if you feel like that might be interesting. But let's start with a framework that I created now, and that is not yet in the course, so you get a sneak peek in this one. So it's called Base, and it's therefore creating a baseline for now. So this is the first part of this future overall step-by-step process. We start with the first one, awareness. And for that, we start with base, boot up, or picking up the phone, then apps, then screen time, and then emotions. So let's dive into. So the B stands for boot up or pick up the phone. And so what I mean by that is, more specifically, for example, when you wake up in the morning, if you then immediately turn off the alarm and open your phone, so meaning you unlock your screen and choose an app to go for, whatever that app might be, that is one pickup, one time picking up the phone. So that needs to be, the screen needs to be unlocked and some sort of app needs to be chosen. That's what I call the first pickup. And you can check that out in the screen time app of the iOS of your iPhone device, or an Android device in the digital well-being app. So there's a lot of data. We'll use that for later stages as well. And there you can see how many times you unlock your phone and also which app you use right afterwards. And so that is going to be a very important part to check. How often do you open it? Like how many times throughout the day? And for me, that time was at its peak, sometimes 150, 160 times a day that I would unlock my phone. And as you can imagine, most of the times just out of habit, just out of, I didn't know what to do. And then you just open it, close it, you wait 3 seconds and, oh, maybe I could check this app, and you open it again. And so that is the first part, very important, noticing how many times you open the phone and what app you use right afterwards. That brings us to the second step, which is applications. And so there you can check also in those screen time or digital well-being apps how much time you spend on those apps, on those specific apps. But the important part of this is actually that you notice what apps do you usually gravitate towards. So even though I might be very good at keeping the time down for using the Instagram app, I still feel drawn to it. Like I need to hold myself back. I even installed other apps. So when I want to open Instagram, that I need to like breathe before or do something beforehand in order for the app to open. So I had a huge gravitational field that always wanted me to open the app of Instagram. And so that is what I'm looking for right now. Is it emails? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it Facebook? Is it any other app that you feel drawn towards and that you think is actually not really helpful? So that's the apps that we're going for. That's not really helpful, that you feel drawn to, and probably also spend the most time in. Okay, that's the second. Let's go to the third one, which is the screen time, the overall screen time. So, for example, you might be switching between a lot of apps. You might be on different social media apps. You might be checking emails, maybe messaging with a lot of people. And all of that might give you an idea that you might just be on the phone because you don't know what else to do, or you're just checking it out of boredom, or you're checking it because of habit. So all of this might become a lot more aware once you see the overall screen time. So your overall amount of time you spend unlocking your phone. Because you might just unlock your phone once or twice during the day, but you might spend 5 hours straight on the phone. And so for that reason, it's also important to check the pickups and the screen time. And so then the last part is the emotions, which is probably the most difficult and the most important one. Because here, what I mean by that is there is usually an emotion that you feel in order to open the phone, or in order to check your emails, or in order to maybe open the laptop. And so for that reason, it's so important to check and track the emotions. And so how we want to do that is whenever you want to open the phone, try to register, why am I doing this? And there might be some thoughts. There might be, there might be a notification, or there might be this or that. Might want to write them down just to get an idea, but also write down, how do you feel internally? Do you feel more like tight or tense or stressed, relaxed, be bored? And so these are the triggers eventually that get you to use the phone, get you to use the screen. And the fun thing is, even if you try to put the phone away, if you try to put a different password, if you try to put the app in a different place, all of that doesn't matter, because the emotion is usually strong enough to get you to help you find a way to use the screen anyways. It might be then you're switching to the laptop, open it in a browser, to use another phone. I don't know how creative your mind could be with this. But usually if the emotion is there and strong enough, it will find a way to get to the coping mechanism. I'll drop that word for now. The coping mechanism in order how to deal with those emotions. So quite often, that's why the habit is probably created. We try to deal with emotions, with thoughts, with stress, anxiety, all of these emotions just with the screen. And so that's our coping mechanism, essentially. And now just to take away the screen is not going to help deal with those emotions. That's why we need to track them, and also in later sessions, dealing with emotions. I have a whole part of this series just about dealing with the emotion. And so this is something that the 4 steps that we want to focus on now. Understanding where we are at right now, the GPS signal, in order to get a proper overview of how our current situation is with the phone habits. And so that will lead us then in the future to be able to create change, to know what the difficult parts for you are, and to later on also be able to change that. So this is the most fundamental step that I want to highlight, that this is something that needs to be done, and it is crucial to implement good strategies to deal with that, because you might have tried a lot of things already, like I did with using other apps to restrict you, blocking the time, and all of that didn't really work. You just put in the password and use it anyways. And so for that reason, I want to focus on the emotion behind it, because that is the strongest force. And this leads us to the second part of the series, which is going to be all about motivation. And how do you get motivated to change now? One part could be, okay, how bad is it really? Is it destroying my life right now? And the second one is, how awesome could this life be that I create? And how much is it pulling me towards it? And so we'll use both of those things in the next part of the series. And you can imagine this part of spending now so much time on your device. losing track of the friend maybe that you're usually in contact with, maybe not noticing how much time you spend on it, noticing that anxiety levels rise, noticing that you can't concentrate that much right now. And all of that switching into, imagine you have mental clarity. Imagine you can actually choose when you want to spend time on your device. Imagine you can actually use it in a way that it benefits you 99% of the time instead of you falling prey to it probably 80% of the time. And so imagine how your life would change if you use the time of an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours for your advantage, for benefiting you and people around you. How amazing would that be if you could actually take control over this again? And how to do that, we'll talk about next time. But before we jump right into the next part, there is the action that you need to take now in order to create the great foundation for change next time. So take out a little notebook, take out a document where you can put this down, or just open your phone or your computer right now, check those numbers, write them down. How were they in the past week, just to get an overview and get the pickup times, get the apps, get the screen time, and now continuously until the next part comes out, you can write down the emotions that you feel. Just notice, maybe write down once a day, what were the emotions, the triggers, the situations that got you into using your phone or the screen. So these are your little homework that you can do until the next part. And to create a little bit more, put more skin in the game, tell someone else, tell a friend that maybe is also struggling with the same topic, the same issue with their screen time and want to change something about this. This is the right time to send them this recording, to create a little accountability between you and your friend. With that, and just following through the next 5 days together, you will have so much more impact. And I can guarantee that you will make a change and improve the way you deal right now, or change the habit with your phone or your screen. Make sure to share it. And so if you have any more questions, write them in the comment section below if you're on Spotify or YouTube. And the last thing, to get notified about more episodes launching, subscribe or follow this podcast. So for now, thank you so much for spending the time with me. Take action so it can actually make a difference. And we'll see each other in the next part of this series. Good luck.